The evolution of the Dodge brand in the 21st century has been very well documented, from the days of being owned by Daimler to moving on to the Fiat Chrysler era to offering vehicles such as the Viper to the Avenger and everything else in between. 2023 is an inflection point for this manufacturer, where the Challenger and Charger will no longer be in production as Dodge wants to move into the electric direction. And the Hornet is one vehicle that's going to allow Dodge to maybe achieve that goal, as this vehicle will offer a plug-in hybrid model. But today I'm taking a look at the full gas-powered version, which is the Hornet GT. And in this video, I want to go over everything about this crossover because it's quite intriguing. It's a sporty vehicle, one that's a bit unconventional for this market, but also one that is rather affordable, and I think together creates a very interesting package that a lot of people might love. Now before I get in this video, I'd like to thank Central 44 Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram in Raynham, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. In 2023, Dodge could be seen as a niche brand that targets buyers desiring performance, as they trim down their lineup throughout the years to primarily produce muscle cars with the Challenger, Charger, and Durango. But where this American brand has strayed away from is the affordable crossover segment that every rival manufacturer is a part of. Learning from their past mistakes with the Dart, Dodge had to go the extra mile with their subcompact crossover to not only stand out in this crowded market, but to also impress consumers with a vehicle that wasn't pandering to buyers solely looking for practicality and fuel efficiency. With the Hornet, Dodge is attempting to thread the needle by offering a performance-focused crossover that's attainable but not watered down due to the downsizing of powertrains. Starting off with pricing, the Hornet GT Plus comes in at just over $35,700 and will likely be the trim of choice if you want some added amenities and creature comforts. Not only is Dodge going against the flow by designing and producing a crossover that puts the interest of enthusiasts first, they're also not directly competing against the likes of the Honda CR-V, Mazda CX-5, or Toyota RAV4. When you take a look at the exterior dimensions, the Hornet's 178 inches in length and 82 inches of width positions it amongst the Nissan Rogue Sport, Mazda CX-30, and Kia Seltos, as the Hornet isn't a true subcompact or compact crossover. And because it's closely related to the Alfa Romeo Tonale, there's design elements and mechanical characteristics that puts the Hornet in a league of its own. Signaling the start of a new era, the road presence of the Hornet differs greatly from the Durango and to a certain extent the Charger, as the sleeker body lines and lack of emphasis on muscular aesthetics demonstrates where Dodge is heading in the near and distant future. While most of the design is taken from the Alfa Romeo Tonale, the Hornet does have a unique grille and less detailed headlight housings. However, the contrasting accents for the functional air vents on the hood and also the lower portion of the front bumper helps accentuate this crossover's performance-focused demeanor. Moving over to the side profile, our Hornet is sitting on 18-inch gloss black aluminum wheels, but 17s do come standard. And for 2024 models through the track pack, 20s wrapped in all-season tires can be added. Since this crossover does have a suspension tuned for aggressive driving, ride quality will be similar to a hot hatch, as the Hornet's handling capabilities are sharper compared to rivals, and with that, you will be feeling some of the imperfections on the road. Thanks to the black top package, we have gloss black side mirror caps to match the Hornet badge and window trim. And to our surprise, these side mirrors are power folding, and you'll have blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the Hornet's relation to the Tonale shines through with the light bar that runs the length of the rear fascia, giving this crossover a Euro-like road presence. Much like other vehicles in this segment, the hatchback-like C-pillars and sloping roofline add some athleticism to the Hornet. And becoming trendy is the exhaust outlets tucked beneath the rear bumper for a cleaner appearance. Powering the Dodge Hornet GT and GT Plus is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that produces 268 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a ZF 9-speed automatic transmission. For a base powertrain and a crossover in this segment, the Hornet right out of the gate will be one of maybe 2 or 3 in this price range that delivers an engaging and fun driving experience. With a 0 to 60 time of around 6.5 seconds, it's also one of the quickest, as the linear power band gets you up to speed in a safe manner, and with a decent amount of mid-range torque, it's effortless when passing slower drivers on the highway. Intriguing and not typical for this market, all-wheel drive does come standard across the board for the Hornet, providing year-round versatility if you live in colder regions of the US. For fuel economy, you're looking at right around 21 miles per gallon in the city, and 29 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're greeted by a Euro-inspired interior that takes many cosmetic elements from the tonale it's related to. But more impressive is that for a crossover that creeps just above the $40,000 mark, you have a surprising amount of tech to interact with and an exceptional amount of interior comfort. On our model, we have power-adjustable, heated and ventilated leather seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having memory seat functionality. Complementing the Hornet's sportier driving dynamics, these seats do provide an adequate amount of bolstering. And for the 2024 model, you can opt for the Alcantara upholstery through the track package to further enhance your driving experience. In front of you, a full digital gauge cluster with the resolution and quality typically found in European luxury vehicles easily competes with the best within this segment, as you can customize what you see from this screen by using the dial and buttons found on the heated steering wheel. It's also here your Sport Mode button will be found, giving you easy access to switch between drive modes. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, the Hornet is equipped with the Uconnect 5 software that can be found across the Stellantis family of vehicles. Our model today has onboard navigation, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with the Harman Kardon premium audio system. On the left side of the screen, you'll have icons that take you to different menus. And to be honest, this head unit is easy to get acclimated with, as it's not too complicated. Despite having the ability to adjust the climate control and your 3-level heated and ventilated seats from the touchscreen, you will have physical buttons for your dual-zone temperature control and front and rear defrosters conveniently placed on the dashboard. Possibly catching you off guard, but a great addition, is the amount of camera angles you have to choose from, including a top view and front-facing camera to help you park the Hornet in tight spots. Making our way towards the center console, we have a wireless phone charging pad to go along with the USB-C and USB input, and it's on the center stack where you'll find the push-button start and auto start-stop, and next to the gear shifter will be the dial that controls the volume for the head unit. For the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items, and rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof, which lets in some natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted most of the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline. And I have a few inches of legroom to work with here. Now the Hornet is not trying to be this family-friendly crossover, this all-in-one great package of a vehicle that you're going to find with compact crossovers. In fact, this really isn't a compact crossover and shouldn't even be thrown in that mix, in that conversation. This vehicle goes head-to-head with the Kia Seltos, Mazda CX-30, maybe throw in the Subaru Crosstrek and Honda HR-V. But the difference here is that the Hornet is being a vehicle that you would expect from Dodge. It's fun to drive, it's also going to be a bit more performance oriented, but also affordable, relatively speaking, for its market and placement. And we're going to find all of that out when we take it out for a test drive. But practicality wise and just interior dimensions, if you were to cross shop this with some of the closer rivals, and I'm speaking of vehicles like the Mazda CX-30, this would fall right in line with crossovers of that size. So from an interior perspective, from people who are going to be sitting back here on a daily basis, they're not going to notice much of a difference compared to other crossovers in this market. Now, when it comes to headroom, you do have a decently sized moonroof, and with that, it might take away from headroom. For someone at my height, that's not an issue at all, but I do think that for taller passengers, they might be hitting their head on the headliner. Now, taking a look at the center seat, you do have somewhat of an aggressive center hump, and because this vehicle is not that big, it's not that wide of a crossover, I don't think you'll be fitting a third person in the center, and I usually say that for a lot of vehicles of this size and in this market. So this is pretty much par for the course for what I see in this price range. And then moving on to the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have a good amount of legroom here. Obviously, this is not going to be the size of a Dodge Durango. It's not going to be like a Jeep Cherokee or Jeep Grand Cherokee. But still, for somebody who was on more of a budget and you're spending between $30,000 and $40,000, this is a great vehicle in my mind, just because it does give you that performance that you're not going to find from some competitors out there these days. Also back here, you do have two rear air vents to go along with a USB-C and USB input. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Now coming around to the back, on our Hornet, we do have a power lift gate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 27 cubic feet of room. Now, if you were to opt for the RT trim, which is a plug-in hybrid, you do lose 5 cubic feet of room. However, with the RT, you get better performance. This is all things to consider. But one thing I do want to point out here is that a lot of people like to say that the Hornet is smaller than a lot of its rivals and a lot of compact crossovers. Personally, when you take a look at the exterior dimensions, even the interior dimensions of the Hornet, it's more like a tweener. It's like a Nissan Rogue Sport, a Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, Jeep Compass, or in my opinion, its closest rival, the Mazda CX-30. And if you were to cross-shop the Hornet with the CX-30, it outclasses the CX-30 by around 7 cubic feet of room. So it is more practical. Now, this cargo area is deceptive because it does look somewhat small because the Hornet is more like a lifted hatchback. But I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, a tripod, a cooler to keep myself nice and refreshed on this very hot day. And I still had a bit more room for some extra items as well. But then with the second row seats full, you're looking at right around 54 cubic feet of room, making it just as practical as a Subaru Crosstrek, and once again outclasses a lot of the tweeners in this market, like the Rogue Sport, like the CX-30. So if you are looking for a vehicle that is fun to drive, but also still has some sense of practicality, take a look at the Hornet. Now, beneath the floor mat on our model, we do have a fix-a-flat kit, but you can opt for a spare tire, which is something that I would definitely go with, because if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Also back here, you do have a rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And then once you're done, just press the button and the lift gate will close automatically. So we're going to start off this test drive with a bit of a hot take. The Dodge Hornet is to this segment that the Porsche Macan is to the luxury compact crossover segment. And it's mostly because it's all about the performance. Dodge has always focused on the performance with their vehicles, at least traditionally, over the past 15 to 20 years. You know, you think about the Hellcat, the Charger, Challenger, Durango, the Viper, you name it. Everything is about performance and what they can give you at a relatively affordable price point. That's why the Challenger and Charger have been really one of the most successful muscle cars in the modern era. But now we're in a new world when it comes to what Dodge is all about. And the Hornet is trying to recapture or capture people who are in the crossover market looking for performance rather than luxury. Now, everyone wants to say that this vehicle goes head-to-head with the Kona N or even the Mazda CX-30 Turbo. There's a few things to consider about that, because the Kona N is about 11 inches shorter and rather thinner when it comes to its dimensions. But then the CX-30 takes more of a luxurious approach to this segment. Even though the Turbo, very quick, and the handling is sharp, it's not trying to be a performance crossover in its price point. Whereas the Hornet, it's called the Hornet GT. You kind of get that feeling that it's going to give you some engagement behind the wheel. And that is something that I really want to experience here with this crossover, because I have a feeling this is going to be quite the enjoyable driving experience for a vehicle that's priced in a market where you don't get that type of engagement. You don't get that type of feeling behind the wheel. And I'm just hoping, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that Dodge did this vehicle right, or along with Alfa Romeo, they made sure they gave this vehicle a DNA that we all expect it to have. So since I'm stuck in traffic, let's talk about the vision that you have here to work with behind the wheel of the Hornet. So you do have a decently sized window. The A-pillars are rather aggressive, so keep that in mind. That will create a bit of a blind spot when you are approaching intersections. And then looking out back, because you do have more of a hatchback design to this vehicle, and with the headrest in the way, it does create a bit of a blind spot when you are looking directly behind you. And I think a lot of it is because this vehicle, even though it is considered a crossover, has that ground clearance. It's actually a hatchback in all reality. Pretty strong brakes, even though we don't have the Brembos on today. The handling is fun. It has Alfa Romeo-like qualities and tendencies, which would be expected since it is closely related to the Tonale. It's also built on the Jeep Compass platform, so it's going to have a good amount of agility and athleticism to it. The steering is very tight for a crossover in this market. The suspension is stiff as well. And while some people are going to complain about that, this is an enthusiast vehicle. It's designed to be fun. It's designed to be thrown around in the corners like on this back road. Now, what I will say though is that there is a decent amount of body roll. You don't feel too connected to the road at all. And of course, with this being a vehicle that should be Dodge's highest volume seller, I would expect it to lean more towards the pedestrian side of things. It's not going to be an all-out track monster. I would like to experience the RT at some point in the future just to get an idea of what this vehicle is like and what it's offering. But in the first 10 minutes, I'm actually rather captivated because it's intriguing. A lot of vehicles in this market are going to have either naturally aspirated 4 cylinders or really underpowered turbocharged 4 cylinders with a suspension and also transmission that's not going to be all that engaging. Now, the Hornet does have a ZF 9-speed automatic, which I wish it had the ZF 8-speed. If it had the ZF 8-speed, it would be a completely different story. Also, we're missing those aluminum paddle shifters, but I have a feeling the reason why that was done, I don't think anyone would buy the Tonale if Dodge gave you that, because this is a vehicle that's begging you to have some fun. It's begging you to get a bit frisky behind the wheel. Now, one thing I do notice though is that it's definitely front-wheel drive biased, especially when you do take sharper corners. You kind of feel the steering a bit where it does oversteer, and I don't know, I mean, it just kind of reminds me of a lifted hatchback. It kind of reminds me of what I have with the Volkswagen GTI, and I can't help but smile. I just wish, though, that Dodge gave us those aluminum paddle shifters just to enjoy this transmission just a bit more. But it always seems to be on edge, which I'm not against either. I think what the Hornet is giving you is a vehicle that's more of a maybe fuel efficient, trimmed down, athletic muscle crossover. This is all word salad at this point, but it's a vehicle that I think you can have a lot of fun while also still getting a decent fuel economy. Now, since we don't have the 20-inch wheels, the 18s do the job. I don't really feel a lot of the bumps or imperfections as much. Also, ride quality really isn't that bad. However, if you are somebody that wants a luxurious driving experience, you're not going to get that with the Hornet. That's not what this vehicle has been designed and engineered to do. It's supposed to be a fun vehicle, a hatchback-like crossover that gives you a fun experience without paying $45,000 or $50,000. Now, in sport mode, the ZF 9-speed does the job. It's not going to be as quick shifting as the ZF 8-speed, but I'm not going to be complaining here, especially since this isn't the really performance version of what the Hornet is going to offer. It's also not going to be clunky like a dual clutch, so keep all that in mind. But this is a way to get buyers into the brand that maybe weren't looking at Dodge in the past, because Dodge didn't have a vehicle in this price range and market. And actually, I kind of wish and really could have hoped that we saw this kind of coexist with the Challenger, Charger, and Durango, and see what Dodge is capable of with a lineup that gives you an entry point into a performance market. It's peppy, it's quick. Even at mid-range at around 3,000 to 4,000 RPM, a lot of torque kicks in here. 295 pound-feet of torque, 268 horsepower. I'll tell you, sure, the Mazda CX-30 has more torque, but it's not this quick. I mean, 0 to 60 times are pretty much identical, but what I'm experiencing in the real world, this is pretty impressive. And this leads me back to its closest rivals. Everyone wants to say, you gotta go with the Kona N. The Kona N, yes, it's a great hatchback, lifted hatchback. But if we're talking about a vehicle and a consumer that's looking for, say, some sense of practicality, or a vehicle that is going to be somewhat family friendly, then you have to cross the Kona N off your list. That's a completely different vehicle for a completely different market. Compared to its rivals, compared to vehicles that would be considered traditional competitors, such as the Mazda CX-30, the Kia Seltos, even throw in the Subaru Crosstrek, Honda HR-V, and even trying to throw in compact crossovers is a bit difficult because it is significantly smaller than a lot of vehicles in that market. But also, practicality-wise, it's just not going to match up with a Honda CR-V or Toyota RAV4. So this has to be a vehicle that's strictly cross-shopped with special competitors like the CX-30 or even a Nissan Rogue Sport. But again, that leads me back to the fact that a lot of vehicles in this segment don't have that great of a transmission. Sure, we can complain about how the fact that, oh, we need a ZF 8-speed. But a ZF 9-speed compared to a CVT or compared to some of the 6-speed automatics out there, I mean, I'd have to lean more towards the Hornet with the ZF 9-speed. My verdict here is this is one of those crossovers that you need to test drive for yourself. You need to spend some time with it, check it out, experience it, get an idea of what you're looking for, because for a well-equipped model, especially one where you do get the Alcantara seats, that could go a long way. I know that you do miss out on the moonroof and also the ventilated seats with that package, but if you're looking for something that really gets in touch with your enthusiast side, then you're going to want to go with that. But even for a Hornet that we have today, and the way this model has been equipped and spec'd out, I actually really like what this vehicle is offering. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.